Hello friends, Mandar here. I'm back with another video. Today we are going to talk about some of the do's and don'ts if you are on the H4 EAD. There are some typical questions that are being asked that I'm going to cover in this video. Next, I'm going to talk about what happens if you lose your job while you are on adjustment of status, pending adjustment of status. And I'm also going to talk about some of the important questions after you get your green card. So you might want to watch this video as there are a lot of important things that you might be interested in. So watch this video until the end and let's get started. If you are here for the first time, welcome. My name is Mandar and I make immigration related videos for US and Canada. I'm not an immigration lawyer, so anything that I say on this video or on my channel is for information purpose only. And for your specific immigration needs, before you take any action, you should hire a competent immigration lawyer. Now there are a lot of people who are on H1B, and since last several years, since the Obama administration introduced the H4 EAD, there are a lot of spouses of H1B primary applicant who are working on H4 EAD. Now it used to be that H4 used to be adjudicated very fast within 3 or 4 months, but nowadays it's taking very long. It can take anywhere between 6 to 8 months or even up to a year. So there are a couple of things that I wanted to remind you. So H4 status or H4 EAD status is based on H1. So basically the validity of your EAD is based on the validity of your H4, which is in turn based on the validity of your H1. So all these are interconnected. So if the primary applicant is going through a job change or a H1B transfer, and if there is an opportunity for extension at the same time, remember when you are applying for a transfer or an amendment, there is also a chance that you would get an extension of your validity of your H1. So that might be the good time to also extend your H4 and H4 EAD. The EAD which is based on H4. The reason is if you don't do it at the same time, then these things can take much longer. So it is advisable whenever you are doing an H1B transfer, you also apply for an extension of your H1B and H4 at the same time, so 539 at the same time, and EAD, apply for EAD also at the same time. So that is just my suggestion. Now make sure that if your H4 EAD is expiring and you should apply for a replacement or a renewal at least 6 months before. So 6 months, you cannot apply anything before 6 months, but at least 6 months before. The reason is if your EAD expires, you may have to wait until you get a replacement card in the mail before you start your new job. So there might be a gap. But if your EAD is something other than H4 EAD, such as like green card EAD, there is a grace period. Like if you apply for an extension after your EAD expires, you can still continue to work in between the time before you get your renewal EAD, and that time period is up to 270 days if I'm not mistaken. So just something to keep in mind. Another thing that I want to also remind you is that if you have been on H4 EAD for a long time, and if you have applied for your adjustment of status, you are also eligible for the green card EAD. The green card EAD is better for several other reasons, because you can indefinitely extend them and it does not depend on the validity of your non-immigrant status, because it's totally dependent on your pending adjustment of status. So it's always advisable, if you have your H4 EAD and as long as your H1 is valid, continue it. But if you as soon as you enter into your green card stage, which is adjustment of status, you apply for your green card EAD, which will have much more flexibility in terms of in terms of being able to work after the card expires, and also not dependent on the validity of your H1B. So that is just my suggestion. Another thing is, a lot of people do ask me this question whether they can work any job on an EAD. And yes, you can, because that is what basically it is intended for, that you can change jobs, you can switch over to any other company, and you can work any valid or legitimate job in the United States based upon your EAD status. You could even start your business while on EAD technically, because it does not limit you into what you can do. You could work, you could not work, you could work any job, you could do business, and so on. So EAD gives you a lot of flexibility. Now the next question is very interesting, and a lot of people have been asking, and I also had this question back in the days, and no one was able to answer that clearly. So here is the question: can you change the job right after you get your green card? So basically, if your green card is based on employment, it is basically given to you on the premise that you have a job offer in a certain job category which is mentioned on your I-140, and that job should be available for you at the time of adjudication of green card. So can you change the job after you get your green card? Technically, you can change your job even the next day after you get a green card. The US government has given you the green card specifically for that job, but once you get that green card, there is no law or there is no suggestion on USCIS saying that you have to be in that job for a certain duration. So you could change your job as soon as you get your green card. Now another thing is, if you change the job too soon after you get your green card, will it be a problem when you apply for your citizenship? I don't think so, because you can apply for your citizenship only after 5 years being on green card. And for your background check, USCIS will look at 5 years prior to your application of your green card. So that will be the time frame right up to when you got your green card. So once you have been filing your taxes, you have been a good Samaritan, good citizen, it doesn't matter whether you changed job once or twice or you remained in the same job. That is not going to matter in my opinion. So that's what I wanted to answer. Now another question is, I covered this point in my last video, that there is going to be a requirement starting October 1st to have your COVID vaccination done as part of your medical exams, which is I-693. Now that is going to be effective 1st of October. So now the question is, if certain people may have some certain medical condition that will prevent them from getting a COVID vaccine. Now so I want to be very clear. The only people who can answer this question whether or not you should take a COVID vaccine is your doctor. Listen to nobody else, only your doctor. Only your doctor will know your personal situation, and they are the only ones who can tell you if you can or cannot take your COVID vaccine. Now what happens if you cannot take your COVID vaccine? The doctor will be able to give you a note, and that you can take that to your physicians, and they will understand your condition and the note from your primary care physician, and that could be waived. So that is just my speculation at this point of time. Now here's another important question, and I got it from few different folks. What happens if you lose your job while your adjustment of status is in progress? So basically, if you are on H1 or L1 visa and now you have started your green card process and you are in the final stages of your green card, which is adjustment of status, which is I-485, and what happens if you lose your job while on pending adjustment of status? Now it depends on when you lose your job. If you have your underlying H1 and if you continue to remain on your H1 or L1, then even if you lose your job, you should be able to transfer that H1 to the new job. So that is one. The second thing is, if your I-485 is pending and you lose your job on H1B, your H1 will go away, but you are still in the valid status in the United States. Now you can start your next job either doing the H1B transfer, or you can use your EAD to start your next job. So that is the second. Now the third thing is, will this impact your I-485? The I-485 will not be impacted as long as you have another job lined up which is in the same category as your H1. So basically, if you have been on pending adjustment of status for more than 180 days, then you can use the AC21 rule, pick up a next job, submit the supplement J that is signed by your new employer, and that way you can retain your adjustment of status or your green card application intact. So those are the things that I just wanted to clarify, because I got several questions from different people about this situation. What happens when you lose your job? So it depends on your situation. If you have an H1, you are fine, because you are still on the pending adjustment of status, and you can still change your jobs on EAD or on different H1 transfer, and you can keep your green card process intact by using AC21 rule, as long as you have fulfilled all the AC21 requirements. Now the other question was, what implications will it have on your dependent? So say for instance you are on H1B and your dependent is obviously on H4 or H4 EAD. Now if they are on H4 EAD, their H4 EAD is no longer valid because your underlying H1B is gone because you lost your job. But considering that you are still on adjustment of status, all of you are still in valid status in the United States. Now if you have your EAD, you can start working on EAD right away, or if you don't have an EAD, then you will have to do H1 transfer within a specific amount of time in order to continue to work in the United States. But you will still be under valid status as long as your adjustment of status is pending. Now there was another question, because I made a video on what to do after you get your green card. If you haven't watched it, please do watch it, because that it has very important tips in it. Now one of the question was, there is a requirement that once you get your green card, a permanent resident who is also a green card holder should carry the actual physical card, original card, with you at all times. That is the law. Now I don't know why that is a law. It is basically to prove that you are permanent resident, and it is actually a felony not to carry the valid green card. It's like your driver's license, you are driving without the license. So you should always carry your physical green card original at all times. There is a penalty if you don't. And now some people ask me, is a Xerox copy or is a photocopy good enough to carry so that you can keep your actual green card in a safe place? No, that is still violating the law. So I just wanted to clarify that. In reality, once you are in the green card, nobody is going to kind of come to you and ask for your status. That's very unlikely, but it's good to follow the practice, follow the law, and know the law, what it says. And then the last question that I'm going to cover in today's video is, some people, I have made it very clear in my previous video that if you are a permanent resident or a green card holder, you still cannot vote in any of the elections in the United States. You cannot vote in federal elections, you cannot vote in state elections, you cannot even vote in your county or your local city elections or local elections. You don't have that right to vote in any of this election, with no exceptions. I just wanted to emphasize this point very clearly, because because if you do vote while on green card, it is going to be a big problem for you at the time of your naturalization. So I hope I was able to clarify some of the important questions that I have been getting, and if you like the content of this video, please hit the like button and consider subscribing to my channel, and I'll see you in the next one.